Mr. John, you need to begin.
Right, greetings to you all. Welcome to Yaka Digital Network and to this specific lesson. I welcome you to continue and also subscribe for more and more information. So today we are going to cover something about production. This is economics. So we are dealing with production as a topic. When we talk about production, in economics, it involves changing or transforming inputs or raw materials into final goods. Let me share my screen so that you can be able to see what we are discussing. Right, the topic is there. We are dealing with production, and I've just told you that production involves transforming raw materials into final goods. And the objective of this is to satisfy the human needs. So wherever you see a raw material that is being transformed, to transform is to change, that is being changed into a final good, that is production. You're producing some commodity. So to produce a commodity, you will need a raw material that is going to be transformed into the final good that is called the commodity. As you can see on the screen, it is the process of changing or transforming raw materials or inputs into final goods and services to satisfy human wants. So that's the basic objective for producing commodities. They are produced to make sure that the human wants are satisfied. If you do not say that, you can say that it's the process of creating utility in a good or service, again to satisfy the human want. The objective is just there down. It aims at improving the welfare or the standard of living of the people. So we produce whatever we produce to make sure that people's standards are being improved. We have what we call categories of production or forms of production. As we are producing commodities, there are different categories that we can go through, or the different forms that we can go through. We can talk about what we call the primary production. We have what we call the secondary production, and then we have what we call tertiary production. Just like we can see them on the screen, primary, secondary, and tertiary. So we are going to look at these forms of productions in details. We are going to get to know what primary production is, what secondary production is, and what tertiary production is. To start with is primary production. So when you talk about primary production, it involves extraction of raw materials from nature. When we talk of nature and extracting raw materials, to extract is getting something from underground. For example, we can talk of mining, we can talk of fishing, we can talk of lumbering, quarrying, and so on. So those are basic examples of primary production. Yeah. You can see the definition on your screen is the process of extraction of raw materials from nature. And the examples are there. We include hunting and farming here. Mining, fishing, farming, lumbering, etc. So When you talk of primary production, make sure that you've got extraction and what you're extracting, which is the raw materials, and then where are you extracting the raw materials from, that is the nature. So those three terminologies make up the definition of primary production. We move on to the secondary production. So when we talk of secondary production, this refers or it involves transforming of raw materials that are gotten from the primary production into finished goods that satisfy human wants. Esther, you're welcome. So when we talk of secondary production, we've just said that we will need the goods, the raw materials that were extracted from the primary production, and they are going to be a little. Esther, can you mute your mic for a while? You will unmute the mic when you're going to speak or to contribute something. So we were saying that secondary production is the process of transforming raw materials got from the primary production into finished goods. So we are getting the raw materials that were extracted from the primary production. Remember, under primary production, we have said that it involves the extraction of raw materials from the nature. So we are getting the extracted raw materials and we are going to transform them into final goods. That is what we call secondary production. For example, under primary production, we said that we have what we call mining, fishing. So if we mine, for example, if we mine some resource like gold, so we are using this gold in secondary production to produce or to transform it into some final goods. For example, necklaces. There are some necklaces that are made out of gold. So we are actually using the resources, the raw materials that were extracted in primary production, and we are using these raw materials in secondary production to produce final goods. Yeah, from the screen we can see the definition of secondary production, process of transforming raw materials got from primary production into finished goods or final goods. And the essence of doing all this is to satisfy human wants. The example we have here is manufacturing or construction of roads and bridges. And the last form of production is tertiary production. Under tertiary production, this is basically for providing services. The services we are talking about, we can say the services that are rendered by the doctors, by the teachers. For instance, I'm rendering a service right now, and what I'm doing is tertiary production. Not only teachers and doctors, we can talk of lawyers, engineers, anyone that renders a service to other people is under tertiary production. And from the definition here we have involves provision of services, as we've just said, and the examples of those that render services. We have services of doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, etc. So basically, when we talk of tertiary production, we mean providing services, and these services that we provide are also have gotten different types, and the types are basically two. We have what we call commercial and direct services. So when we talk of commercial, these are services of traders and business people. So commercial, it will involve exchanging of money. For example, you have banking, transport, and communication. As you're transporting something, or as you're transporting yourself, you will need to hand in their money there and then. So when we talk of commercial services, we mean those services of traders and business people. Then there is what we call direct services. So these services are rendered directly to the individual that you're rendering that service. So these services are provided by individuals and cannot be transferred. So you cannot transfer a direct service because I'm giving it to you directly. It can't be transferred. And the examples of these people that provide such services are, we have nurses, we have doctors, we have teachers, and so many others. Yeah, basically those are the three forms of production, or three categories of production. In summary, we have said that we have primary production that includes extraction of raw materials from nature. Second form, we have production. Under secondary production, we are using the raw materials that were extracted from the primary production to transform those raw materials into final goods. And lastly, we have tertiary production. We have said that under tertiary production, we are talking of providing services. So it involves the provision of services. And under the services that are rendered, we have said that we have two types of services. We have what we call the commercial services and the direct services. Yeah. Esther, do you have any question about what we've covered so far?
No.
Are you getting each and everything well?
Yes.
Okay, that's nice. So we continue. After looking at the forms of production, we are going to look at the types. Now that we know the forms or categories of production, let's look at the types of production. Types of production, we have what we call direct production, and we have what we call direct production. Let's look at that. Direct production. So you're producing your goods, and you're producing these goods for your own consumption. And it is also called subsistence production. So you're the producer and you're the consumer. This is for direct production. You're producing your commodities, but you're not going to sell them to anyone, but you're going to consume these commodities yourself. That's what we call direct production. For example, if you go plant your maize and then consume the maize yourself, that's direct production. You have produced the commodity and you're consuming it yourself. And these kind of commodities that are produced under direct production have gotten some features. So we look at the features of direct production. Esther, can you brainstorm and give me like 2 features of direct production? Characteristics. What do you think are the characteristics of direct production? After knowing that direct production involves producing commodities for your own consumption. Yes, Esther. You have any idea about the features?
Features or character of direct production mainly uses simple tools such as fingers and hand hoes. Then mainly uses poor quality, mainly produces poor quality product, and also mainly produces low quantity of output.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm
So
like,
those, yeah.
no,
Yes, you're adding more.
saying
Mm,
mainly uses
mm.
simple tools such as fingers and hand hoes, mainly produces poor quality.
Okay, thanks for that input. You have talked of mainly using simple tools, which is right, and low quantity output, which is also right. So the features of direct production, we can include maybe producing on a small scale under subsistence production. Um, the production is basically on a small scale, and it involves little capital. So you will need little capital to produce what you're producing. And direct production will also need to use family labor. So there is only need of using family labor. You cannot get other labor from out to produce whatever you're producing for your own consumption. Low output, we have talked about that, and then the quality output is also always poor or low. So basically, those are the features. We can take a look on them on our screen. One, there is mainly use of simple tools. Esther, you've talked about that. There is mainly production on a small scale, involves little capital, uses family labor, produces low output and low quality output. So that these producers that produce for their own consumption do not mind about the quality of the output, because they are producing for their own consumption. And then the output is basically low. So the quantities that are outputted are always low. Then they use family labor. It's the family members that actually engage themselves into the production. There is little capital, no amount of capital that is no much amount of capital that is needed for subsistence production, and then the production is always on a small scale, and they use simple tools. Basically, those are the features of direct production. So we said that we have two types of production, and we have looked at the direct production. Esther, what do you think is the other type of production? Oh, we have direct, and we have what we call indirect. So we are saying that we have two types of production, and we have direct production and indirect production. So we have looked at what we call direct production and the features. So now we look at what we call indirect production. So we have said that under direct production, commodities are produced for one's consumption, for the producer's consumption. And under indirect production, the production is basically made for exchange or for the market basics. So under this, you will need to specialize what you want to trade or what you want to exchange. since this kind of production is made for exchange or for market purposes, you will need to specialize what you're going to produce. Right. Indirect production is the production of commodities for exchange or for the market, and it involves specialization with a view of encouraging trade and exchange. So you will specialize on what to produce depending on what you want to earn or you want to get out of your production. So after looking at the types, we are going to look at what we call the factors of production. You can call them factors of production. You can call them agents of production. As we are producing the commodities, as we do the production, there are some things that we need as agents that are going to actually aid us carry on the production. Without them, you cannot do the production. And these factors, they are actually the resources. These resources will help you facilitate the production of goods and services. So without the resources, you will not be in position to produce whatever you want to produce. And these resources will include, we'll have what we call land, we have what we call capital, labor, and entrepreneurship. You can also add organization under the agents. So those are the factors of production we have talked about. Factors of production refer to resources that are used to facilitate the production of goods and services. Yeah, they are basically the resources that will be used to facilitate the production. And we have talked about land, capital, labor, entrepreneurship, and organization. And these factors of production have gotten what we call factor prices. Each factor here has gotten a price. Land has a price, capital has a price, labor has a price, entrepreneurship has gotten a price, and organization. So what we call the factor prices, they are actually the monetary rewards. So we have said that these factors are agents, and these factors or agents are resources that facilitate the production, and they have what we call factor price. Each factor has gotten a price, and there are 4 factor prices, monetary rewards that are given to those factors of production for their contribution in the production process. We have said that these factors contribute to the production process, and therefore, since they contribute, they are given monetary rewards. So these monetary rewards are what we call the factor prices. So we look at the factor prices. Yeah, factor prices refer to monetary rewards given to factors of production for their contribution in the production process, just like we have said. And these factor prices will include, for example, we talked about land. The price for land is rent. The price for capital is interest. The price for labor is you can get salary or wage, and for entrepreneurship is profit. Let's look at them on our screen. Oh, they include, we have rent for land, interest, that is for capital, salaries or wages, that's for labor, profit, entrepreneurship, then salaries again for organization. So those are the factor prices. Land The price is rent. Capital, the price, the reward is interest. Salary is for labor, and the profit for entrepreneurship. Down here we have the definition or the brief explanation about wage, a monetary reward given to labor for its contribution in the production process. So here we have the factors of production talked about in details. We said we have land, capital, labor, entrepreneurship, and organization. So we are looking at each of the factors in their details. So when we talk about land, we refer to all the gifts of nature found below. Patrick Senyange, can you mute your mic? Patrick, mute your mic. Okay. Esther, have you gotten the factors of production well? Esther? Is there any question about factors of production and their factor prices?
No.
You've gotten all of them well. Okay. So we have a summary of the factors of production and their
I don't have
prices.
any.
You don't have any
Yes.
question. So we can produce.
No, I don't have. Yeah.
Okay, we continue. We have said that we have the 5 factors of production: land, capital, labor, entrepreneurship, and organization. So now we are looking at these factors of production in their details. We're starting off with land.
Do you mind sharing screen?
I don't mind, actually. I can share the screen. Okay, we have our land as the first factor of production. Land, when we talk about the land, we mean all the gifts of nature. These gifts can be below, they can be on, and they can be above the surface, the earth's surface. So whatever that is found below the earth's surface, whatever that is found on the earth's surface, and whatever that is found above the earth's surface, that's what we call land. And the reward for land, we said that that's rent. Rent is the factor price for land. So we have some examples of these gifts. We have what we call minerals, we have water, and we have air. So the minerals are found just below the Earth's surface, and water is found on the Earth's surface, and then air is above, of course. So basically, that's what we can talk about land. We move on to the characteristics. We look at the features of land. So when we talk about land, it is first of all free. It is a free gift of nature, and secondly, it is immobile. You cannot move land from one place to another. It is immobile. Its state is immobility. But occupationally, you can as well move it in the long run. Then the supply of this land is inelastic. This means that the supply is actually fixed. You cannot increase it, and it has no opportunity cost during production. So when we talk about opportunity cost, this is what you can take instead of the other. And if you have, for example, if you have Colgate and Fresh Up, yeah, you can use one and leave the other. But for the case of land, there is nothing that you can use and leave land, so it has no opportunity cost. Then the other feature of land is that it is not homogeneous. It is not similar, but it varies in terms of fertility, value, quality, and so on. So you find that a land that is here is differ from a land that is in Arua. That's in terms of fertility, in terms of value, and in terms of quality. The other feature we can talk about is the supply. So if you look at the supply of land, you see that it's basically more. Its supply is more compared to other factors of production. Everywhere there is land everywhere. But when you look at other factors of production, it's not of a sure deal that you'll find it everywhere. Then, lastly, we can talk about what we call the diminishing returns. It is subjected to that law of diminishing return, which we are yet to look at. Right. We look at its importances, the importances of land. After knowing the features, we want to know of what use is land. We have said that it is more of supply. What's the use of this land? Maybe we can have some ideas from you, Esther. Even Patrick, you can give in some ideas about the importance of land. Esther, can you hear us? Patrick, you're giving in an importance of land.
Importance of land. Importances of land.
Yes, what do we use land for?
It is used for constructing premises for businesses.
Yes, that's one. Do you have any other?
For growing crops.
Okay, that's a nice one.
It is a source of minerals and other raw materials.
Okay. Thank you for that wonderful input. Esther, can you add on? Her network is poor. All right, so we can look at other importances apart from what you have just given us, Patrick. Source of raw materials, for example, minerals. We get a lot of minerals from land. You can extract a lot of minerals from land, and it facilitates growing of crops. So we said that land is, they are the resources that are, or they are the gifts that are gotten from below, on, and above the earth's surface. So we are looking at the importances of land, and we have one as a source of raw materials, for example, minerals. So for this case, these minerals are found under or below the earth's surface. Then when we talk of facilitating growing of crops and rearing of animals, this is on the earth's surface. So this land will facilitate growing of crops and rearing of animals, which are potential sources of food. That is on the land or on the earth's surface. And the first one was just below the earth's surface. Then thirdly, we have source of energy. We know we get electricity from water, which is a good gift of land, and that is on the earth's surface. We have solar power from the sun, that's above the earth's surface, and thermal energy from coal below the earth's surface. And the other importance, it facilitates construction, just like Patrick has said, and we have also collateral security to acquire loans from financial institutions. So you can use land to acquire a loan from the financial institution. That is also an importance. And lastly, we can talk of a dumping ground. So this land can also be used as a dumping ground for waste products during the production process. Basically, those are the importances of land. So, unless there is any question, I would like to stop here for today. We shall continue from there next time. Patrick, do you have any question?
No, madam.
You have gotten everything?
There is something I want to ask you.
Yes, go on and ask. Patrick, waiting for your question.